Hey friends, welcome or welcome back. My name is Shannon, and today we're going to do a book haul. I'm currently in Tennessee visiting some family. As you may have seen in my last video, I visited a few bookstores while I was here in Tennessee. I visited Ann Patchett's Parnassus, which is in Nashville, and then I visited 3 bookstores in Murfreesboro, which is where I'm currently staying. And at each bookstore, I did pick up a couple of books, mostly used, but some new, and I have them all here in this handy dandy tote that I got from Parnassus, which I'm actually quite in love with. It's a really great tote. I like the long handles. So we're going to talk about each store that I visited and the books that I purchased there. Okay, so the first store that I went to was in Nashville, and it is Parnassus, which is owned by Ann Patchett, who is the author of books such as Bel Canto and The Dutch House and Tom Lake. I've never read anything from Ann Patchett, but I do have Tom Lake, and I do plan on picking it up maybe next summer. The bookstore was great. It was small. It was in a little shopping center in Nashville, not in downtown Nashville where all the bars and music and everything is, but a little bit on the outskirts in a little shopping plaza. And it was great. Just your typical independent bookstore with all the new releases, and there's some bookstore dogs that were there. I got to see a couple of the dogs, which was really, really cute. They were just running around the store, and one of them wouldn't let me pet him. I really wanted to pet him, but he just wanted to play. And so I got 5 books there. All right, unfortunately I have you on a little rickety table, so I'm trying not to move anything so that you're not shaking, so sorry about that. All right, so the first one I got is So We Read On: How the Great Gatsby Came to Be and Why It Endures by Maureen Corrigan. And I got this because I read The Great Gatsby for the very first time a couple months ago, and I'm mildly obsessed with it. I had never read it before. I know I never read it for school, and I had stayed away from it deliberately because I thought that I was going to hate it. And I didn't hate it. I found it extremely interesting, and there was so much more that I wanted to explore. And so I started doing a little bit of research on it. I listened to a couple of podcasts that went really deep into it, and I'm still quite fascinated. And I feel like this is something I want to continue studying. Maureen Corrigan is a book critic for NPR, and the critic at residence at Georgetown University. And according to Corrigan, she believes that we generally read The Great Gatsby the first time when we're too young to comprehend its power. So she is offering a fresh perspective and takes us into archives and high school classrooms and onto Long Island Sound to explore the novel's hidden depths, revealing Gatsby's surprising debt to noir, its rocky path to recognition as a classic, and its profound commentaries on the national themes of race, class, and gender. And that's what I really want to know about. I felt when I read Great Gatsby that it really was a commentary on race, gender, and class. And I wanted to know more because I felt like I was missing a lot of things, but I knew that they were there. So I'm looking forward to checking this out. Next, we have On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous by Ocean Vuong. And I just saw this recently recommended, I believe, by Nathan's Nook. And this is a letter from a son to a mother who cannot read. Written when the speaker, Little Dog, is in his late 20s, the letter unearths a family history that began before he was born, a history whose epicenter is rooted in Vietnam. At once a witness to the fraught yet undeniable love between a single mother and her son, it is also a brutally honest exploration of race, class, masculinity, and our current American moment. So I am looking forward to picking this up. It doesn't look terribly long. It's under 250 pages, and I am looking forward to this. Next, we have The Days of Abandonment by Elena Ferrante, and this is translated by Anne Goldstein, translated from Italian, I believe. Elena Ferrante is also the writer of My Brilliant Friend. Yes, translated from Italian. And this is the story of one woman's headlong descent into what she calls an absence of sense after being abandoned by her husband. Olga's days of abandonment become a desperate, dangerous free fall into the darkest places of the soul as she roams the empty streets of a city that she has never learned to love. So that seems really interesting. I don't want to call it, unhinged woman, but maybe a little bit. Housemaid of Dawn by N. Scott Momaday, and this I believe is a classic, and I want to say N. Scott Momaday was the first Native American to win a Pulitzer. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe this book won a Pulitzer and the author was the first Native American to do so. This is about a young Native American, Abel, has come home to New Mexico from war to find himself caught between two worlds. The first is the world of his grandfathers, wedding him to the rhythm of the seasons, the harsh beauty of the land, and the ancient rites and traditions of his people. But the other world, modern, industrial America, pulls at Abel, demanding his loyalty, claiming his soul, and goading him into a destructive, compulsive cycle of depravity and despair. I'm trying to read more Indigenous fiction, of course, here in the United States, and I'm also hoping to get my hands on some other Indigenous fiction from other countries. And this, I think, will be a good start. Last from Parnassus, I picked up Scoop by Evelyn Waugh. Evelyn Waugh is also the author of Brideshead Revisited, which I have read, but it's been so long that I cannot remember a thing about it. So Brideshead Revisited is due for a reread. But I picked up Scoop because Scoop is actually referenced in a book that I read 1 or 2 years ago by Jojo Moyes called Last Letter to Your Lover. It was also made into like a Netflix film, which was actually not terrible. The book was fine, but I liked how they made the reference of this book and this character in that book. So I wanted to check it out. And also I wanted to read more of Waugh's fiction. I've only read Brideshead Revisited, and he has a ton of books. So we'll start my Evelyn Waugh collection. So that is it for the Parnassus haul. Next, I went to the Grumpy Bookpeddler, which is in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, and this is a used bookstore, and it was huge. I was not expecting the size of this place. I mean, there were just so many books. It was absolutely crazy. And you just went down this long hall, and then there were like little offshoots as well. So if you're one of those people who loves just going into a bookstore and just spending hours there just digging for stuff, it's not like it's all, I'm not going to say it's beautifully displayed or curated. Maybe it's a little bit curated, but I've been in other used bookstores where the curation's a little bit better, but there were just so many titles. Although I do love digging for books in used bookstores, if there's too many, I tend to get a little bit overwhelmed. But I did spend a good couple hours in that store. However, I walked out with only one book. There were so many, and I was in danger of purchasing too many, and then I'd have to schlep them home. As it is, I'm probably going to have to ship all these books home. I'm not going to be able to bring them on the plane with me when I head back to Boston. But what I grabbed in the Grumpy Bookpeddler was the Satanic Verses by Salman Rushdie. If you've watched my channel, I have a couple of banned books videos up, and if there's any book that has been banned and caused such a controversy, the Satanic Verses is it. Salman Rushdie just recently survived an attempt on his life due to this book, due to the fatwa that was issued because of this book, which I've never read. I've never read any of Rushdie's fiction, although I do have his most recent memoir, Knife, about his recent attack at home, and I will be picking that up soon. This is set in a modern world filled with both mayhem and miracles. The story begins with a bang, the terrorist bombing of London-bound jet in mid-flight. Two Indian actors of opposing sensibilities fall to earth, transformed into living symbols of what is angelic and evil. This is just the initial act in a magnificent odyssey that seamlessly merges the actual with the imagined. The next bookstore I visited was the Happy Stack, also in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. And I really enjoyed this place. It was definitely smaller than the Grumpy Bookpeddler, but I felt like it was more curated and so easier for my brain to not get so overwhelmed. They had a really fantastic classics collection, and everything was, in my opinion, I thought it was laid out really nicely. And I felt like their prices were better than the Grumpy Bookpeddler. I did feel like some of the prices at the Grumpy Bookpeddler were just a little bit too high for a used book. The same book at the Happy Stack not necessarily would have been 50% less, but it was definitely cheaper at the Happy Stack. So I got 4 books at the Happy Stack, and the first one is Trespass by Louise Kennedy. And Louise Kennedy is an Irish author, and I've seen this around for a little while, but I don't think anybody's talking about it. And this is set in Northern Ireland. Amid daily reports of violence, Cushla lives in a quiet life with her mother in a small town near Belfast. By day, she teaches at a parochial school. At night, she fills in at her family's pub. There she meets Michael Agnew, a barrister who's made a name for himself defending IRA members. Against her better judgment, Michael is not only Protestant, but older and married. Cushla lets herself get drawn in by him and his sophisticated world, and an affair ignites. Then the father of a student is savagely beaten, setting in motion a chain reaction that will threaten everything and everyone Cushla most wants to protect. So this sounds really good. So I am looking forward to picking it up. And it is a brand new paperback. Like, I don't think this has even been read. And I paid only $7 for it. And the regular price is like $27. Next, I got The Elegance of the Hedehog by Muriel Barbary. Now, first of all, I love these Europa editions. There's going to be a couple more Europa editions coming up. But The Elegance of the Hedgehog, I read about, I want to say 10 years ago. However, I cannot remember a thing about it. Just nothing. And usually when I can't remember at least the plot of the book, I remember how I felt, but I cannot even remember how I felt about this book. So I figured, I saw it, and I don't actually own a copy of this. I know I read it for a book club, so maybe I had gotten it out of the library. So I never owned a copy of this. So I'm going to reread it so I can remember what it is about. Oh, let me tell you what it's about. It looks like we have Renee, who is the concierge of a hotel. She is short, ugly, and plump, has bunions on her feet, is cantankerous, and addicted to television soaps. And she is attached only to her cat. Then you have Paloma, who is a super smart 12-year-old and the youngest daughter of the Josses who live on the 5th floor of this hotel. She is talented, precocious, and startlingly lucid. She has come to terms with life's seeming futility and has decided to end her own on the day of her 13th birthday. Paloma and Renee hide both their true talents and their finest qualities from a world they suspect cannot or will not appreciate them. They discover their kindred souls when a new tenant arrives, a wealthy Japanese man named Ozu. I still can't remember what it's about. I just can't remember. All right, next from the Happy Stack is Gilead by Marilynn Robinson. This won the Pulitzer Prize. I don't recall which year. And I know that it's very popular, and I know it makes lots of top 100 lists, top 50 lists, but I've never read it. And partially because I keep trying to find editions without the Oprah's Book Club on it, because I think this was like an Oprah's Book Club pick many years ago, and I absolutely just hate buying books with the book club stickers on it, whether it's Oprah's Book Club or Reese's Book Club or Jenna's Book Club or whatever. I absolutely hate those stickers on the books. So I found an edition that does not have any of those stickers. It just says winner of the Pulitzer Prize. This is set in 1956. The Reverend John Ames begins a letter to his young son, an account of himself and his forebears. Ames is the son of an Iowa preacher and the grandson of a minister who, as a young man in Maine, saw a vision of Christ bound in chains and went west to Kansas to fight for abolition. Reverend Ames writes about the tension between his father, an ardent pacifist, and his grandfather, whose pistol and bloody shirts concealed in an army blanket may be relics from the fight between the abolitionists and those settlers who wanted to vote Kansas into the Union as a slave state. The last book from the Happy Stack is The Letters of John and Abigail Adams. Now, I don't read a ton of books on American history, and I am hoping to rectify that. However, the few books that I have read on American history have been about John Adams and Abigail Adams, and mainly because I'm more interested in Abigail. And I just find that she really was a fascinating character, and their marriage was absolutely fascinating. And at a time where, you know, women really were nothing, he relied on his wife. John Adams relied on Abigail heavily. These are letters between the two of them, and they used to call each other dearest friends. And I think the biography that I have about Abigail is called Dearest Friend. And so, yeah, this is just a portrait of a marriage, a real partnership, which I think is wonderful, especially at a time where men really didn't consider their wives as partners. The last bookstore I visited is called the Crying Cat Books and Records, also in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. And this was a cute little place. It was actually in a house. So it must have been zoned for commercial, but it's in a house. It appears to have both new books and used books. It was just really, really cute and felt really comfortable. I felt like I could just plop down on one of the couches they had in there and just sit there and read. Whereas the Grumpy Bookpeddler was a place that you could dig for stuff. The Happy Stack, I didn't feel like I could just crack open a book and sit there for a couple hours and read. But here at the Crying Cat, it just was so comfy and bright, and I just wanted to sit down on one of the couches and read a book for a little while. So it was really cute. I got 2 books there, and they are both Europa editions. And so both translated fiction. This first one is Broken Glass Park by Elena Bronsky, and this is translated from German by Tim Moore. And this was a used copy, but I don't even think it's been read. Someone did write in it, but I don't think it's been read. This is about Sasha Neyman, who was born in Moscow but lives in Berlin with her 2 younger siblings and, until recently, her mother. She is precocious, independent, streetwise, and since her stepfather murdered her mother several months ago, an orphan. Unlike most of her companions, she doesn't dream of escaping from the tough housing project where they live. Sasha's dreams are different. She longs to write a novel about her beautiful but naive mother, and she wants to end the life of Vadim, the man who brutally murdered her. So that sounds really good. And the second book that I got from the Crying Cat is also a Europa edition, and this is Return to the Dark Valley by Santiago Gamboa. And this is translated from Spanish by Howard Curtis. Santiago Gamboa, I believe, is from South America, but I'm not entirely sure where. I'll have to find out. So this is about Manuela Beltran, a poet haunted by a troubled childhood, bent on revenge for the wrongs she suffered at the hands of her mother's lover. Her vendetta will draw together a cast of enigmatic characters, the inhabitants of Gamboa's dark valley. There is Tertullian, an Argentine who claims to be the Pope's son, Ferdinand Palacios, a Colombian priest with a dark paramilitary past. Then there are Juana and the consul, united in a complex relationship based on desire, need, and pain. Finally, there is Arthur Rimbaud, the precocious, brilliant poet whose dramatic life story plays a central role in this kaleidoscope tale. This is being compared to Roberto Bolaño, Clarice Lispector, and Gabriel Garcia Marquez. So those are 3 very excellent authors, and Santiago Gamboa is being compared to them. So that is my book haul here in Tennessee. And I have to say, Murfreesboro, which is the city that I'm staying in, has a lot of bookstores. I was absolutely shocked, and I think that's great. So I feel my money has been well spent at the great bookstores that are here in Tennessee. So that is all I have for you today. Thank you so much for joining. And next time you are in Middle Tennessee, please feel free to check out these bookstores that I have visited and am recommending to you. Thanks so much. Have a great day. Bye.